it's Katie with Tate&Bugs, and today I'm going to show you how we refinished our ugly old cabinets. If you've been following along with us on our renovation journey, you'll remember that I said a while ago when we refinished the kitchen that I would show you a step-by-step video on how I did these cabinets. It's been a while, but here's that video anyway. Now before we get started, I want you to remember and keep in mind the whole time that this is not a tutorial. This is more like a step-by-step, follow me along the way and see how it turned out, and maybe you can learn from some of my mistakes. If you guys are new to our channel, be sure to go down to our Putting Down Roots playlist and click on the very first video so that you can see how far we've come on our farmhouse renovation. I'll also be sure to link all the products, the tools, and materials in the description box below so that you can click those to get more information or possibly purchase them for yourself. If you guys are liking what you're seeing, be sure to click that subscribe button as well as that little notification bell so that you can be sure to be notified when we post a new video so that you guys don't miss a thing. Now let's get into the overdue cabinet video. I wanted to show you what the cabinets looked like before, and they had hardware on them, obviously. And they were slightly dirtier. Today's level of productivity is take the handles off the cabinets. I have never painted kitchen cabinets before, and I have heard horror stories of how it goes south very quickly. So I'm gonna take you guys along with me and see how this whole process goes. Yeah, let's do this thing. All right, first we gotta give them a really good cleaning and get all this old antique grease out of here. I've seen people use TSP and this crud cutter, so this is what I'm using because I didn't find it at the store, the TSP. And then we're gonna fill the hardware holes with wood putty. Okay, so the next step is to clean the inside really, really good. They kind of smell weird, and I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a good layer of gunk in there, but we'll clean those off really good, and then we'll go ahead and label them so that we know what doors go to what cabinets. All right, it is time to start sanding the cabinets. I don't want to sand them down completely. I just want to give them enough tooth for the primer to grab onto. I'm gonna use a 220 grit sandpaper. The sandpaper numbers are kind of confusing. The higher the number, the smoother the surface you're gonna get. And so you wanna get like 40 to 60 for super coarse, stripping stuff off. And then anything above like 120 or so is gonna give you a more smooth surface. And so since I don't want like big old gouge marks, I'm gonna go with the 220 to give it some teeth. And to save time, I'm gonna use this guy. And I actually have 180 sandpaper for these guys. I don't want to have to go buy more, so I'm just going to use the 180. One of the biggest mistakes people make when painting is the prep time. It's so easy just to start slapping the paint on there, but that's when you start getting bad results. And that's why I don't like painting. I honestly do not like painting. I don't mind painting walls and stuff, but like detailed things, not my favorite, but I love the result that it gives you by giving you a completely different look. But that is the one thing, the one complaint that people had about this Valspar cabinet enamel. A lot of people were saying that they didn't like it, and then the people who did like it just said that the other people didn't like it because they didn't spend the time in prep that they needed to. So that's why I'm gonna try really hard to just stay focused and prep and take steps slowly. It's gonna take a while. It's not like 1 or 2 coats and you're done. So that is why sanding is such an important step, for sure. You don't wanna skip that. Safety first. All right, here goes. You probably can't see it, but I can feel like right here, it's real bumpy feeling, like
like they varnished and kept varnishing without sanding between, kind of bumpy. You know, like there's little bubbles and stuff. And then right here is where it's sanded is super smooth. So hopefully it'll make a big difference when I put the paint on. All right, I got all the cabinets sanded completely, but I'm gonna go over everything with a damp microfiber cloth.
All right, I've got my primer and I've got my brush, and I am not ready, but ready to prime these cabinets. So this primer isn't just a normal primer. It claims that it's good for tile, glass, metal, trim, and cabinets. Covers and seals wood knots, sandable, tintable, mildew-resistant finish. And most importantly, what attracted it to me was that right here it says stain blocking. So I'm really pulling for it and hoping that it works flawlessly and gives me a beautiful cabinet. Let's do this thing. This is one of my favorite things ever. A brand new paintbrush. I'm starting with the corners first, just so that you can load up your corners and then sweep it inwards. That way you don't end up with like big pools in the corner. Your primer is not an actual paint coat. You just want to make sure every part of the wood is covered. So you don't need to go through and make sure it has this flawless white finish. This is just primer step. Well, a couple hours later and a half a gallon of primer done. I've got everything primed. All right, Toby left and went with Grammy for a few hours, and so I'm going to start painting the cabinets. I'm super excited, but I'm not gonna rush it because it might need a second coat, and you need it to dry nice and nice good before you add the second coat. This is the paint that I'm gonna be using, Valspar cabinet enamel, no brush marks. And this is my beloved favorite little paint brush. They actually come with no handle. It's just like a little rubber nub, but my little rubber nub fell off. But I love it that like it helps you not to get cramps in your hand as bad when you're like holding on to a paintbrush handle and stuff. This you can just hold simply like that. And it is a little bit messier, but I don't really mind paint on my hands. So this is the little guy that I'm going to be using. Because someone said you need to do 6 really thin coats, and someone else didn't say that. So let me look. All right. So we're gonna go with 2 coats and possibly a touch-up. That actually has pretty good coverage for the first coat. I'm happy. It doesn't feel super thick. It has a nice thin fluid feel to it, but I'm pretty pleased so far with that being the first coat. All right, I've got one side completely painted, 1 coat on there. One thing I'm worried about a little bit is the roller is kind of giving an orange peel effect, and I don't know, like I've said before, I don't know, like I've never painted, like I'm not a professional painter, but I've seen a lot of people say that about a lot of different kinds of paints. And I don't know if it's just because of the foam roller that I'm using, but I'm tempted to just brush everything rather than have that orange peel effect. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not as desirable of a smooth finish as I would hope for. It's wet, so it's gonna be extra shiny. This is more of the actual brush marks. And the brush marks actually seem to level out a whole lot better than the orange peel texture. So I'm not really sure. The brush marks bother me less than the orange peel. So what I am doing is I'm using the roller in the shelves, which I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but I'm cutting all the corners in, and then I'm using the roller in the shelves, and that really helps just get things done quicker. But I'll show you the difference because I'm looking at that thinking, man, you know, it still needs more paint on it. But when you see this side compared to the side with only primer, you can totally tell a big difference. If I were to do it again, I would probably go and buy, I want to say Cobalt makes one, an airless sprayer, and it's just an electric little sprayer, and just tape things off. That way you actually can get a really, really smooth finish. But I think overall it's gonna look really nice, and I'm really excited about it. First coat down. I am so excited because after your first coat, the second coat goes on very nicely, and then hopefully after the second coat, it'll just be touch-ups here and there. Now I'm gonna go on the porch and sand the doors and give them a good sanding and wipe them off real good, and then I'll clean out our bedroom and tarp it off so that Bandit doesn't go in there and his little fuzzy black hairs get all into everything. So far so good. Now I'm gonna go get those doors done. All right, got the room all plasticed off so that I don't have to worry about little fuzzy dogs coming in. Oh. Look, a fuzzy dog. And so now I'm gonna start painting the cabinet doors. I picked up these little tripods. I didn't get enough, but they're supposed to be super, super helpful with not having like the paint edge all the way around where it touches your surface. And they're super pointy, and so that you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of paint being stripped off from like using, you know, like tomato soup cans or something. So I might still have to use some cans, but I'm gonna start doing these. I'm gonna start on the backs so that I can finish on the fronts and have a nice good finish of primer. So I think I might try to brush on first, and then I might try to roll on a couple others and see which one has the better finish. But the primer goes on really thin anyway, so I'm not super worried about it showing through or anything. Okay, I wanted to take a video and show you what one coat of paint looks like. There we go, you can see all those dark streaks and stuff. So you would think 2 coats would be plenty, but I'm thinking it's gonna be 2 coats and then a touch up. Here's 2 coats finished, and it looks really, really good. But there's still a few little gray spots that I know I'll have to touch up on. That was a sigh of relief that 2 coats are finally done on all of the cabinets. And honestly, they're drying a lot less streaky than I thought they were going to. Because you know, as paint dries, it always changes colors a little bit. And so I think my touch-up's gonna be pretty minimal, but I'm so excited that they're almost finished. Okay, so I got the first coat done on the cabinets, and I just did the roller. I didn't even try to do the brush. It looks really like what I noticed in the kitchen is when I did the roller, it kind of looked orange peely, but after it dried, it didn't so much. So I thought I'm just gonna do this. And I started on the inside of the cabinet, so if it dries and looks really bad, then I can go ahead and use the paintbrush on the front. But I'll show you for now what it looks like wet. There, you can see that texture pretty good. I love the roller because it gives better coverage than the brush, and it's easier to make it a cohesive finish. But yeah, that's the inside, so we'll see what it looks like when it's dried, and then I'll give it a second coat, and then I'll make a decision after the second coat dries if I will use the roller on the fronts or not. Okay, so here's the final finish of the inside of the cabinet, and the orange peel is basically all gone. I mean, if you look really close, you can kind of see. I don't even know if you can see. And the first time, I already painted the sides, so I don't have to worry about those anymore. Because if you put too much paint on the sides, I might have issues with them closing. So, we're just gonna lift them up and start on the fronts. Some people don't like getting paint on themselves. I don't mind, but I just took my finger and ran it all the way around when I was done, just to make sure that it flattened out the paint that was there, so that you don't get that weird ledge. And then check and make sure there's no bumps. I'm gonna just lightly, like with no pressure at all, roll this just to make sure I get any drips that went off on the edges. So I want to show you, I don't know if you can even see very well, but right here, see that? It's almost like a tan kind of color. You see the section here? That's usually a sign of bleed through. I'm gonna have to cover it up. I know there were some stains inside the cabinet, which it didn't really bother me, but like some bleed through, which I'll show you a video of that right now. Okay, so this is what bleed through looks like. I obviously am not worried about it because it's the inside and it's really small, but they kind of almost have a freckle look, like where they kind of expand. They don't just look like something speckled on the top. So that is bleed through. I've had issues in the past of stains bleeding through the paint and not really knowing how in the world to fix it. And I was hoping that this primer would take care of that because it said it would. So it didn't really take care of the stains like I thought it would. But what I found was that you're supposed to use, one lady uses a product by Zinsser, and it's just their shellac. And so instead of buying a $15 can, I went ahead and bought a $7 spray paint version of it, just because I didn't want to spend that much money. And if you don't use it regularly, it'll go bad and get solidified and stuff. We will learn together and see if that product helps. Well, we're back from church and I've got my paint clothes on once again, but I'm so bummed. This morning my plan was to wake up and spray some of this shellac on the stains on the fronts of the cabinets, and I forgot to do it. So I gotta do that now, and then it says wait an hour before painting, which isn't too bad for a shellac. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray these stains. There's only a couple, but since they're on the fronts of the cabinets, I wanna make sure that I get them all, just so that I can have a really nice bright white finish with nothing that looks like dirt that I'm constantly trying to wipe off. This is the stuff that I got. It's clear. It says it dries with a light golden finish, so this would not be a good thing to use as a finish on top of a white, but it says that you can paint right over top of it. So here's hoping. All right, so now it is the fun part. I get to start prepping the hardware for the cabinets, and then I get to do the backsplash and then do the wood overlay that I'm gonna pretend is a butcher block. Let me show you here. All right, so first of all, we've got these hinges that were originally on the cabinets. I wanted an exposed hinge. I didn't want the hidden hinges because then you have to cut out all the channels. These are disgusting. Some of them still have cat pee on them. You can smell it. Horrible. I'm gonna just wash these up real good and spray paint them black to match with these. Now, I will tell you, these are currently brass, and some of you might be thinking, don't paint them! But the majority of these that were at the salvage shop were painted. So back in the day, I guess maybe they just painted them when they painted the cabinets. So I'm excited. I'm really hoping that 2 hinges on each door and a latch in the middle will really help break up all the white going on. So this is kind of fun. It's got some markings on the backside, but the date 1957 is on there. So there we go, 1957 hinges. I think those are worth saving. All right, it has been a happy little hour, a very, very fast little hour, and it is now time to put my second coat on my cabinets, and I'm really hoping that the application goes really good on top of that lacquer, because I've painted on top of other paints and things before, and they just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, kind of like separate and ball up, not even ball, but just kind of like puddle up. I don't know how to explain it. And so I'm really hoping that this does not do that. So I'm gonna go do that now. I am so almost out of paint. Like, this is basically all I have left. So I'm praying that it lasts, because that would be a really big bummer to buy another gallon of paint just for touch-ups. All right, I got a second coat on the doors, and I don't know if you can see because it's white, but this is all the paint I have left. And then a little bit in the bucket. So I'm going to sparingly touch up just on the outside surfaces what's obvious, and then save the rest of this for the front of the cabinets. And hopefully they won't need too much touching up. Perfect plan today to paint some hardware. I've got this Rust-Oleum satin black paint, and I think it's really going to be what makes the cabinets with a nice bold black hardware on the white cabinet. I think it's going to look really, really good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start cutting the wood, the butcher block replacement for the cabinets, and I need to measure and make sure that I cut one piece out to this edge and then one piece out to this edge so that I don't end up with a missing block. And then I'll cut the other two this far. All right, so the next step is to use the rotary tool and cut these off here, and then dry fit it and make sure it all fits right. Okay, there we go. now that all the wood is cut, I'm gonna go outside and give it a light sanding and then beat it up just a tiny bit, and then I'll go ahead and stain it. And after the stain cures for a little bit, I'll go ahead and just do a light coat of probably just a wipe on poly, because we're not planning on using this as an actual butcher block. It'll just be a surface, kind of like what a table would be. So, not too worried about that. So I kept calling these stair treads, but they're actually the riser part. The stair treads have the bull nose around the front, and the risers don't. I'm gonna grab a sample piece of wood and try to blend a couple stains and try to make them a nice tone that I want, because I'm out of the stain that I love, and I don't want to buy a whole new can of stain just for this. So I'm gonna blend some and see what I come up with. I mixed up some stain. I used a cherry and a espresso and mixed them together, because espresso was too dark, cherry was way too orange, but together it looked really nice. And I'm not gonna let it sit and soak, I'm just gonna put it on and take it right off. Ooh, I love it. This actually is super close coloring to the hutch that we just got, and so hopefully they'll complement each other really nicely.
That's a pretty color.
Isn't that pretty? I love it. I'm Jarrod. If you do decide to play around with your stain and mix it, make sure you at least mix enough for the whole entire surface so that you don't have to go back and mix it and get inconsistent coloring. That'd be a bummer. Unless it was intentional, then it wouldn't be a bummer. Then it'd be good. It is that beautiful time where I get to put my cabinet doors on the cabinets. I'm hoping this goes pretty simple, because I didn't patch any of my holes that were already there, and I labeled them, so they should go exactly where they were. But we'll see. These are the screws that we're using. The larger pack of black screws were so much more expensive, and so we just got these little framing screws made for metal, I think. But I think they're still gonna do the job just fine. But for the latches, I'm gonna go ahead and measure just dead center for these ones, and I'm thinking I might do center for the others as well. So here's 5. Alright, I got all my hardware put in, and so I'm gonna go and put the butcher block on now. I'm just gonna glue it down with a construction adhesive, and to make these last forever, I'm going to screw into the wood up from the underside. But to know how thick this is, I went ahead and drilled a hole straight through and then measured the remaining what was hanging out and subtracted that from the total length. This total piece, this and the wood underneath it, is a total of 1.5 inches thick. The wood that I'm putting on top is 3/4 inches thick, and I don't want the nail to go, or the screw to go straight up through it. I just need it to go into the wood far enough to grab. I need to use a 2-inch screw so it'll grab just enough. And so I've got my 2-inch screws. I'm gonna go ahead and put some liquid nails down, put these in place and screw them in from the underside, and I'm just gonna do 3 screws per board, and then it'll just really pull nice and tight to the adhesive, and we should be good for a long time. Since we didn't have enough left over from the table saw, we got this from Lowe's.
Yep.
So we put some liquid nails up here on the side, and we're just gonna finish nail it in place. I got my cup that I saved from earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this on. All right, stain is on, and I am super happy. Now it's backsplash time. This is Stainmaster Luxury Vinyl. Luxury. Apparently it's groutable too, which is kind of cool, but I'm not gonna grout it. 2 full pieces will not stack on top of each other, and instead of doing a full piece and then a slice up top, I'm just gonna go ahead and measure this and then cut them all at equal measurements so that I have just like a center seam right down the middle. Sunday morning, and I'm feeling kind of bummed a little bit because of the backsplash tile. I love it and it's beautiful, But let me show you what the issue is. When you make the pattern line up, you get this massive gap on some of them. Some of them, well, that one just fell. Some of them are perfect and some of them fall. I don't know if this is standard for pattern tiles and maybe there's just forgiveness when you grout in between or what, but we'll go to Lowe's today and figure out what to do about that. But it was supposed to be a quick project. Now it's turning into a little more than that. But that's all right. It'll still look really pretty. All right, so I got the backsplash done. Finally, it just took some extra chiseling, replacing some pieces that were misprinted, and it is finished. I am gonna go around and do just like a tiny, tiny half round trim all the way around and paint it white just to frame it in and to cover up the gaps that are there, just to give it a more finished look. And so that'll look really nice and intentional and not like I'm trying to cover up a mistake. So my last step, other than doing those little bits of trim, is to poly it. I could do like a oil or something, but I've already stained this, and my intent was not to use this for food or a butcher block. So I'm just gonna kind of treat it like a table, and I'm gonna use this stuff, Minwax 1-coat polyurethane. And I know you're supposed to brush on stuff, like poly with a brush, but I tend to use microfiber rags, and I really, really like how it comes out, just because I get really impatient with brushes and tend to overload it and you get bubbles and all sorts of stuff. So I'm just going to treat this like a wipe on poly. It is a clear satin, and I'll do 1 coat, see how it looks and feels, and then I may do another. But basically this is just to protect it from, I don't even know, from water and swelling and that kind of thing. So this will do the trick. But that's my last step. I decided against the half round because if you do half round, you can't just butt them up to each other. You need to do a really specific 45-degree cut. And I didn't really feel like doing that. Plus the only half round that they had was either way too big or way too skinny. And I really like the simple square look of these. It kind of matches the cabinets. So I'm going to go ahead and do these. And I think it'll really help just kind of hold everything in place. Always, always, always want to dry fit stuff before you paint it or finish it or something, because the last thing that you want is to do all the work and it not fit. So there's the frame, and now I'm gonna find some paint and paint them. Also, label, label, label like crazy, otherwise you'll be so upset at yourself and trying to figure out a puzzle. So here's all the right sides, here's all the left sides. We've got right bottom, right top, right, 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 left, left top, left bottom, left, right, left, left. All right, so these tiles have been giving me a little bit more trouble than I originally anticipated. I thought it was gonna be a super easy, quick thing to do, and they're kind of just being a little bit of a pain. I woke up this morning and it just, like, they're just not adhering at all. So I have a thought to try to fix it. I think this is totally against what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to put any more adhesive on top of these because they're self-adhesive, and if you put more adhesive on, it ruins what's already there. But I did test one out over here, and it's doing just fine, just with liquid nails. So what I'm gonna do, and this is super not advised, I don't think, because I've never seen it advised, but I'm gonna just take the finished nail gun and see, like, test it out in a sample and see if I can just tack the corners, maybe in the black spots, and so it won't be as noticeable. But I'm just done with it now, and so I think I'm just gonna put liquid nails on and just try to finish nail them in place, and just enough nails to hold it while it glues. But I'm hoping I'll be done with this today. All right, I've got my sample tile and my nail gun. This is so not how you're supposed to put vinyl tile up. But in the defense of the tile, it was made for floors, and the package did say use a 300-pound roller, and I'm not willing to lift a 300-pound roller up here and roll it. So we're just gonna test this out and see how bad the holes look, because if it can at least adhere and hold it in place and long enough to really stick to the surface, that's good enough for me. Our nail gun has an adjustment to where, like, the nail could stick out a little bit, or you can make it go all the way through. So I might have to play with that adjustment just to see. But let's try this out. Like I told you before, this is not a tutorial. This is just me showing you how I did it. pattern still does not line up like I would want it to. But there comes a point in time when you just, I don't know, I guess count your losses in a way and move on. So that's what I'm gonna do. It's still gonna look really good and I'm really happy with it. But like, I don't even know. They're like an eighth off probably. And it still is gonna bug me if I sit and stare at it. But that's okay. I think it's gonna be totally fine. So I have to say, not bad. And I don't think they're going anywhere. If I wake up in the morning and these are all just flopped over, I'm done. But no, I think it's gonna hold. And I mean, looking up close, you can see the dots. But I think your eye is so busy with the pattern that you don't even look for the dots for the nail holes. But I think it's gonna hold and I think it's gonna be fine. One thing, I kind of feel like a dummy because I just realized this, was when I cleaned the cabinets, like every surface, super good and scrubbed it, I don't think I did this wall because I think I was just thinking I was just gonna nail something up or staple something up and didn't really think about it. So when I started adhering these, I was like, oh, this should hold really good because it's a super clean surface and you know how you're supposed to clean things perfectly. And then just now, it occurred to me that I don't think I did clean that. So, you know, I'd give them another chance as far as the adhesive on the back. But as far as the pattern lining up, I don't know. That's just kind of a bummer. But overall, I think it looks really good. Alright, so that was quite the adventure and quite the process of getting those cabinets refinished and exactly the way that I had pictured in my mind. A couple things that I would do differently if I did it again was I would definitely invest in a sprayer. For sure, invest in a sprayer. That would make things so much easier, especially for the interior of the cabinets. And then what else would I do different? Start sooner, because it's not getting done if it's just sitting there and you're not getting the work done. So I definitely would have started sooner. And then as far as the tile backsplash, that was quite the pain. I was kind of disappointed because that in my head, that was the finishing touch that was gonna be fun and easy. But if I had to do it again, I would definitely not buy that specific tile. I would probably just go ahead and get a really high quality, thick vinyl peel and stick wallpaper. And because I wanted to do a pattern, I didn't want to do something plain. And so I would definitely have done that instead. But I think overall, I'm super happy. I can't wait to dig into my decoration boxes and maybe put little green boxwood wreaths on top of the front cabinet doors on the top layer. Decorate with things like that and stuff. But for now, I went ahead and decorated with a couple things that I could find. And so let me show you the befores to refresh your mind. Here are the befores. That kind of hurts my brain to look back and think of them looking that way, because when you're in it and you've seen every step of the process, you don't really remember what it was like. So that was the befores, and I'm so glad and happy to show you the final afters. I'm super excited. I really think the black hardware helps a ton, and I'm so glad I was able to find the little latches rather than just like a little knob or a pull or something. So I'm really happy with the progress and with the final product, and hopefully this video was helpful to you to show you how I got through a project like that, and maybe you'll end up doing your cabinet someday. And hopefully with the few tips that I gave you, you can have some great success. Thank you guys so much for watching, and join us on our next video.